guys, stay with me as we start creating our new project, the Azani ISP management system. So we're starting with the tables. The first table is the login table, as you can see. Let's close this one first. The login table, it has the user ID, which is automatic. It has the full names of the student you're registering, i.e. John Kamau. It has the username your desired username, i.e. John254. You write there your password, which has been masked. Then you retype the password. You press enter, and as you can see, we have saved our first record over here. That is the login table. The next table is the login history. It indicates the time of the login and the date. As you can see, we have logged in right now, that is 30th of January, 6:37 in the morning. But it indicates all the time, including the seconds. So those are the two tables that we have created. Now let's continue creating more tables. The next table we are going to create is called institutions. Of course, according to the equation. So you can see the equation right here. I will leave the link to it down in the description after the video. So that's the question paper. So institutions. So the institutions table should contain the following. The first thing, we go to design view. You start with the institution ID. That's the first thing. Institution ID. That is an auto number, of course. That is the primary key. So the next entry is the institution name. That is a short text, of course. The next entry is the institution type. Of course, this is a lookup wizard because we have you have different institutions according to the equation. You can see the equation right over here. Now is the equation. You can see according to the equation, we have different types of institutions. These institutions are primary, junior, senior schools, and colleges. So right here we'll add those different types of institutions. So number one, we have primary. Wait. Then we have junior. We have senior. And we have colleges. Now let's go back here. The next entry should be the contact person. That's a short text. The next entry should be the phone number. That's a short text. Then we go to email. The next entry after email is the date registered, the date when the person was registered. Of course, that is time and date and time. And the last entry is the registration fee paid. That is yes or no. Then we save, close it. As you can see, the table looks like this. So the first thing is the institution name, i.e. Kenya High. The next entry is the institution type. You can select whether it's primary, junior, senior, or college. The next entry is the contact person, i.e. principal. The phone number. The email. the date registered, that is, you can select today, and the registration fee, is it paid, yes or no? If it is paid, you check the box, and we have completed. Now we save and we can close it. So we create a new table, and the next table is going to be internet packages table. So we design view, so we can rename this table, or we can leave it like that for now. So the first entry is the package ID, that's an auto number. The next entry is the bandwidth name. Then the last entry is the monthly cost. And this is a lookup table, so we write our own entries. So the bandwidth name, there are different types of according to the question. As you can see on this table, we have one that is 4 Mbps, 10, 20, 25 and 50. 4, 10, 20, 25 and 50. So that is 4 Mbps, 10 Mbps, 410, 20 Mbps, 25 Mbps, and lastly 50 Mbps. Yeah, according to the question. Now we save, limit to list, finish. Then we go to the monthly cost, which is also a lookup wizard. So the lookup wizard type allows you to add your own details. So also one column. Now on this side, that is the cost. So the cost is 1,200, 2,000. So 1,200, 2,000, 3,500, 4,000 and 7,000. Limit to list, finish. Now we save. Now let's open the internet packages. You can see the bandwidth type. You choose if you want to take 25 Mbps. Of course, the monthly cost, that is 5,000 shillings. Let me make that like that, 5,000 shillings. Then we save, then we close. So we create another table, we save the table, and the next table is the LAN packages table. So we design view. So the first entry is the ID, so that is the rate ID. Actually, you can rename this table to be LAN rates. LAN rates. I don't know where to rename. Let's close it first. You can rename it to be LAN rates. And for the internet packages, we can rename it to be bandwidth packages. So we go to the LAN rates, and let's continue to design it. So the first is the rate ID, which is an auto number. The next is the the nodes. You can see right here on the question. When an institution requests for their services, the company visits the site to establish the readiness of the institution to have internet installed. The company finds out the number of users and infrastructure requirements such as computers and local area network, LAN, local area network. An institution that has all the requirements and is ready for connectivity, pays an installation fee of 10,000. And if the institution has not met the requirements, they may purchase personal computers from Azani company at 40,000 shillings. They may also purchase LAN nodes. So the LAN nodes, these are the rates of the LAN nodes. As you can see, the cost of local area network nodes in Kenyan shillings, that is 2 to 10, it is 10,000 Kenyan shillings. 11 to 20, that is 20,000 Kenyan shillings. 21 to 40, that is 30,000 Kenyan shillings. 41 to 100, that is 40,000 Kenyan shillings. So they all have different rates and different amounts. So let's go back to the table. Now it's the node range description. That is a short text, i.e. 11 to 20, 21 to 40. Then the minimum nodes, that's a short text. Maximum nodes, short text. Then the range cost. Then you can close and save. Create another table. Save the table. So the next table is the hardware costs. So the first, obviously, the ID, the cost ID, hardware cost ID. So the first entry, we say that is the hardware ID, which is an auto number. The next entry followed by the hardware ID is the item name. That can be a personal computer that is purchased. That can be the reconnection fees. That can be the installation fees. Then the unit cost. Now we are done with that. Save, then close. I forgot to mention, so an internet service provider is an ISP is a company that provides internet to users. So an example of an ISP, as you can see here, is Power Internet. That's an example of an ISP. You can see they have their own system, they have their own website. So this is an example of an ISP. As you can see, prices come right there. There's an installation fee, there's a weekly fee. You can see all details. Yeah, so this is an example of an ISP, internet service provider. What they do is to provide internet to users. Yeah, there's Tender and many others. There are many ISP in Kenya. So let's continue. Now the next table we are creating, let's go back to the question. As you can see, the question says the company finds out the number of users and infrastructure requirements such as computer and local area network. So computers are required, and they have said that if the institution has not met the requirements, they may purchase personal computers from Azani company at 40,000 Kenyan shillings each. Now the installation fee is 10,000, but a computer is 40,000 each. Now the next table we are creating is the site visits table. Design view. The first is the ID. The ID is the primary key, the visit ID. The second entry is the institution ID. We're using it again. The next one is the visit date. Of course, the data type is date and time. The next entry is the is it ready. or not. That is a yes or no. So if the users have paid the installation fee, the 10,000 Kenyan shillings, you have to choose whether they have paid or not, so that way we have to use the yes or no data type. That is a check mark. The next entry is the computers needed. That's a number, so the default value is 0, of course. Write down here. Now if the default number is 0, because the company or the institution may already have their own computers, so they don't need to buy their own other computers. So the next entry is the nodes needed, the number of nodes needed. So the number of nodes needed, that is a number, of course. The default value is 0, and we save it. So the next table we are creating is the subscription table. Design view. Now, of course, the first entry is the ID, the subscription ID. That's an auto number. The next entry is the institution ID. And the next entry after institution ID is the package ID. The next one is the start date of the subscription. After the start date, we have the is upgrade. So that's a yes or no data type. So the is upgrade is crucial for the 10% discount calculation that is received. Then finally the status of the connection. So it's a short task. You can put a lookup wizard, I think, because there is only two status in connectivity, that is active and disconnected. So let's put a lookup wizard, so it will make our work easier. So there's an active or disconnected. Limit to list, finish, save, close. So subscription, the status, this is active or disconnected. Close. Create another table, save. So the next table we are going to create is the payment table. So design view, the first entry is the payment ID, that is an auto number. Institution ID, that's a foreign number. Now we go to the payment date. Date and time. The next entry is the amount paid. That is currency. After the amount paid is the payment type. So that is a lookup wizard. So according to the question paper, one can pay for registration fees, can also pay for the installation fees. Can also pay for the monthly bill per month that must be paid. Also the fine, any fine can occur. Another one can be hardware purchase, like routers, like Ethernet cables, like repeaters, hubs, connectors. So hardware purchases. Limit to list, finish, save, close. So I think we have finished with the tables. Now the next step is to create the queries that we need. So what is a query? So a query is a relationship between too many tables that brings up a connection between them. So a query is the most crucial part of your project system because it's where you earn marks for computations and data manipulation. Think of a query as a request to the database to perform math or filter your data based on the rules of the question paper. So think of a query just as a request to the database. The database is the access to perform your maths or filter your data based on the rules in the question paper. So the first query we are going to create is the infrastructure and installation query. So create a query. So it is the infrastructure and installation query. So this query solves the problem that how much does a school owe to get connected? That's a question. It solves the problem how much does a school owe to get connected. So if the is ready right here, let me show you something. What table was it? So if the is ready is checked yes, it means the cost is 10,000 shillings, because the is ready, if it checks yes, it means the institution already has their own PCs and their own LAN nodes. So if it is no, that is unchecked, then the cost is 10,000 Kenyan shillings plus the PCs, the personal computers, times 40,000, because one personal computer is 40,000 Kenyan shillings, but the number varies. So if they need 10, that is 400,000 Kenyan shillings plus the LAN cost based on the nodes. So let's create a new query. So let's create the first query design. Now we are creating the infrastructure / installation query, which should include the following tables. That is the institutions table. The next table should include is the site visits, and lastly the LAN rates. Now let's close this one. Now let's drag the institution name into the grid. Yeah. So let's create a new empty column and type an expression that will calculate the total cost. Now I had already typed up the expression over here, so we can just copy and paste it. Paste there. Insert column. Wait a minute. Go to the builder and paste the expression. Then click OK. Now we go to the another query calculation, that is the total installation formula. So the total installation formula is the second one which I had already created. So as I said, the total installation cost is calculated if is ready is true, that is 10,000. Now 10,000 Kenyan shillings, that is the installation fees, plus the computers needed, the number of computers needed times 40,000, because one computer is 40,000 Kenyan shillings, plus the LAN cost depending on the number of the LAN nodes. So let's build another expression right there, paste it. Okay, now let's save this query as total installation formula or total installation cost. And we're done. Wait, there's an error. So the LAN rates table, we included it wrong. So first thing, so the number of computers needed. So it asks us for the number of computers needed so that it can calculate the total installation costs. So let's input 5 computers needed. We know 5 times 40,000, that is 200,000. So that's it. You can see it is ready. Just ignore this error. So you can see it is ready, the LAN cost, the total installation cost, and the institution name. So let's go to create another query. The next query, so it is the monthly billing query. That is the next query we are creating with upgraded discount. Let's go back to the question. So an institution that would like to upgrade to a higher bandwidth is offered a 10% discount of the cost of the bandwidth they are upgrading to. So 10% discount. So it has the subscriptions table. Let's add it. The bandwidth packages. Yeah. So the institution ID, we add the institution ID down there. The next thing, we add the bandwidth name down there. Now we create the formulas. So the formula that we need to create here, the logic here, this query calculates the monthly bill for the internet services. I hope you understand that. The logic from the paper, is that when institutions are upgrading to a higher bandwidth, they are offered a 10% discount to the new cost they are upgrading to. So we need a formula that calculates the discount. So the discount formula, I have one here. I had already created it, so we just copy and we paste it. So the operand right there is wrong. So let's redo that one, that error. I don't know where it came from. So let's go copy our code and let's build the expression. Okay, that's fine. So we save it as the discount, as the monthly billing query, which calculates the discount, the 10% discount. So monthly billing query. And we close it. So let's create another query. So the next query we are creating is the defaulters and finds query. So this is the most complex query out of all the queries we've created, the monthly billing and the total installation cost. So this query is identified who hasn't paid and adds the 15% fine according to the question. So all institutions using the internet services are required to pay by the end of the current month. An institution which fails to pay is surcharged a fine of 15% of the amount as an overdue. So the internet services will be disconnected if the amount due and the fine will not have been paid by the 10th day of the subsequent month. Once an institution pays the monthly bill and the overdue fine, a fee of 1,000 Kenyan shillings is charged for reconnection. So the main part of this is the 15% discount, the 15% fine by the 10th day of the subsequent month. So we are creating the defaulters and fines query. So the logic from the paper is that payments are due by the end of the current month, and if unpaid by the 10th day of the next month, we should add a 15% fine. So we need the monthly billing query, and we need the table, the payments table. So we link all of them by the institution ID. We should be linking by the institution ID. Then we add the institution name and the final monthly billing. So we should add another table. Institutions table. Then the institution name should be right over there. Let's start over. The next step is to design the formulas. So this table is this query is complex in that we're not using only one formula to generate the query, but around 3 formulas. So the first formula is to check if the current date is past the 10th of the next month. So we're creating the first. Let's first add this there. Institution. So let's build. So we need a formula to check if the current date is 10th of the next month. So I had one over here. Let's copy and paste it over there. So the next formula is one that we need to calculate the fine. So the overdue fine, that is the formula. We paste the formula. That is the formula for the fine calculation. Then we save. No, we haven't completed yet. The final formula, that is a formula that calculates the total amount due. So the total amount due, as you can see there, is the final monthly bill plus the overdue fine. So let's paste the expression. Okay. Final monthly bill should also be there. Now let's save. Let's name this query as the defaulters query. Close it. Now we have finished the tables, we have finished the queries. The next one is the forms, then finally the reports. So the forms that we have right now is the startup form. As you can see it is loading. Azani ISP management system, internet service provider. Yeah, that was the startup. Now here is the login page. You write your username, then the password, which is masked so no one can see your password. You log in. See, there's an error there, so we didn't create the next page after the startup. So for today we are only creating the tables and the queries. Then for the next part we are creating the forms and the reports. Let's go for a quick check in the tables and the queries. So that's it for today. In the next video we are going to go through the forms and finally the reports.